This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use, but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
I'm Debbie Travis.
And I'm Tommy Smythe.
And this is Trust Me, I'm a Decorator.
Hello, everybody. Today we have one of my all-time favorite people and a very close friend of mine and Debbie's. She is a world-renowned chef. She's an author, publisher of many cookbooks. She is a mother and a dear friend to many, certainly Canada's BFF in the kitchen. Please welcome Chef Lynn Crawford. Hi, Chef.
Hello, Tommy and Debbie, friend.
Hello, Lynn. It's not often you get tingly when we have a chef on. I get so excited and giddy. I'm just going to try and rein myself in because, I could talk to Lynn all day.
Is tingly a culinary term, Debbie? Tingly?
Yeah, well, actually, there's this new thing they're putting in drinks. Have you heard about this, Lynn, that tingles your tongue? So I've seen it in cocktails. It sounds like acid to me, but it's something you put this little, this maybe doesn't sound right. You're in a club, there's this little pill, you put it on your tongue and then you take a swig of a drink. No, it was just in a normal bar. And they said this is the big thing now. And it's like, you know what the kids have? That thing they put and it all goes sizzly.
Oh, like the Pop Rocks or the... Yeah.
Well, they're putting those in cocktails.
Well, it would be citric acid, wouldn't it? Isn't it?
Is that what it is?
That's the culinary term.
There, that could be. Don't quote me on that. But I'm telling you, speaking of drinks, we're going to dive right into this. I've got a gin drink for the two because I know you both love gin.
Yes,
but what
we
about
do.
This cherry basil smash? And you take because it's cherry season now, right?
It is.
Take the cherries, muddle that with some lime juice and simple syrup, right? And then you're just going to add 3 leaves of basil. So the basil and the cherries working together, and then throw in, I don't know, Debbie, how many ounces for you? 2? Tommy, 2?
A bottle?
2 to 4.
Anyway, that is your smash.
Is it very sweet or is it very refreshing?
It's so refreshing. Give it a splash of soda at the end. And I'm telling you, that's our new drink. Remember, Tommy, when you were up at the cottage once and we had the New York City bicycles?
The New York bicycles, yeah. That was one summer that I remember as the summer of the New York bicycle. And if you have one, you can still ride the bike. If you have 2, you'd better not.
Right. You might fall in the lake, right?
I fall off. I like
the
the idea of the cherry smash because after you've had a few of those, you can say, I got smashed. And you're actually telling the truth about that. And I do think also that for our listeners, if you haven't got a basil plant sitting on your windowsill this summer, you're not doing summer right.
Absolutely.
I mean, everybody can have a basil plant. You got to have it.
Right.
Yeah.
Debbie, how's your garden in Tuscany?
Amazing. Slow this year. It was slow because we had a very wet spring, but it's agapanthus season. And I love agapanthus, with the great big heads.
You have a gorgeous agapanthus garden at the villa.
Yeah. So they're literally came out overnight. So it looks like fields of purple footballs. But my basil is really good. But my black basil died. So I'm a bit annoyed about that. Literally died. And I've really realized now, that if the minute anything starts to flower, you've got to get it off, right? You've got to get out of herbs and stuff. And of course, the lavender's out now. And I've been making, because it lasts for a year, is lavender syrup. So lavender syrup, just make sure your lavender's not sprayed. And then you boil it with a bit of sugar.
Right.
And it becomes a cordial. And then you just add sparkling water or gin.
Yeah.
And if you hate the smell of lavender, you won't like it. But it is so refreshing. It's really, really, really fantastic. So anybody can buy an organic lavender bush, and just put it into a pot. And you get from one handful of lavender, like the flowers, you'll get like a milk bottle size of cordial, which can last you,
Oh my gosh, I would so love to have those lavender, beautiful plants that you have in Tuscany in my garden. And, I'm trying so hard.
Well, there's a lot of types. I think you have to find the right lavender because it's pretty much a weed, that fits because I think some are more for the south of France or Italy where it's very dry. But, if you've got more moisture in the soil, I think you have to find that. But they do have lavender.
Oh, I've got it going, and I'm, some success, but I think that we have had a lot of rain. But, I love the idea of preserving whatever beautiful bounty comes from your garden.
Absolutely.
And doing those syrups. I mean, that's a classic. Or the basil, make your pesto, and just, extend the season as long as you can by preserving it. But anyway.
And can't you freeze basil? Can't you freeze it, put it in ice cubes or something?
Well, what's funny is that Laura's grandmother, Babka, who is 99, can you believe that?
Oh my God.
She's going to be 100 in September. And what she's taught us is, of course, her years of experience of gardening and just being a beekeeper and all of that. But she'll take the herbs and bundle them, roll them, and put them in the freezer.
Wow.
Yeah, she's a big fan of dill. So she'll do, big,
love dill,
bushels of the dill, and into the freezer it goes, so that you'll always have that, chop, 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 and throw it into your soups. Or
does she put it in a plastic bag before?
Yeah, she does. In? Yeah, then like a little plastic wrap or plastic bag.
Yeah,
there you go. So we've been doing that too. But oh my gosh, I've got enough dill. Yeah. To, give everybody listening to this podcast.
Because it's much better than dried. I mean, I rarely ever use dried herbs. I mean, I'm not you, but.
Chef, famously with the incredible Maverick, brilliant show Pitchin' In, you kind of left everything behind to go and find your passion and visit farms and do all those things. Then later on, after that show was done, a few years ago, you actually did something similar in terms of packing up your city life and moving to the country. And we've been talking so far a lot about gardening and things. I actually had the great pleasure of visiting you in the country at the farm and touring the gardens and seeing the land. And I think to me, there's just always been this incredible authenticity about the way that you live and how connected that is to the kind of content that you deliver and the kind of information and education that you deliver. And so you really did kind of walk the walk, and you walked all the way out to the country and established a farm. Tell us about that.
Oh, well, it was during pandemic, the crazy pandemic times. And Laura and I, with Addie and Gemma, our two daughters, we just didn't want to be in the city anymore. And we made the move, which was a big life change. And we bought 100 acres just outside of Peterborough, Ontario, where we were closer to family. And that's where Laura's family is all situated, in sort of that neighborhood and that community. And what we wanted to do was, for the next chapter, was really change it up from everything that we were used to and accustomed to, crazy restaurant life and television and anyway, leave that all behind and get back to what's the most important: family, giving our girls the experience of where does your food come from, and growing and learning. And we're all really students learning together, which has been great. And to have this beautiful property where we are able to play, it's really such a pleasure. It's changed my life completely. I'm not ever looking back. I'm the happiest I think I've ever been. We have a huge garden, 2 new greenhouses. I bought a tractor. I mean, I am I'm living the life. And Pitchin' In was wonderful in that you got to work with the farmers and the growers and the ranchers firsthand and know where your food comes from. But now we're doing that for ourselves on a day-to-day. And it's such a huge responsibility, but such a huge pleasure. And again, it's like mental health. I'm just happy, looking out, at the wheat fields and the corn and then our beautiful garden. So I can't wait. I'm glad you got to see it, Tommy. Debbie, certainly next time you're here.
I'm going to be there end of October. I know it's probably not the best time to come, but I'd love to. Your vegetable garden's really big. Are you selling the veggies, or is it just for you guys? Are you just eating a lot?
My goodness. It's about, for chefs, we're used to cooking in volume, right? So maybe we're a little bit over the top, but we have a lot of family and friends. And that's what it is. And we'll say to people, please come. I'm up at the cottage right now. There's raspberries in the raspberry patch. I've never seen so many raspberries. It was like a bumper bumper crop and the cherries. We have cherry trees in our backyard. So we say to our friends, come on over, bring your containers, pick away and enjoy it. So, and
before the birds come, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's more cherries. Even the birds are like, okay, time out. But no, it's been really great, really great. But preserving the foods, picking, and the kids they'll run down to the garden and just like pick the beans and picking green onions and like. I'm like, whoa.
Wow.
It's amazing to watch. Amazing to watch.
It's a fantasy. I mean, really, for a lot of people who dream of country life and literally living off the land, it's such an old-fashioned notion to a lot of people who live in cities. And it's not an option that's available to everybody who lives in cities. And that's why it's so inspiring, because we can all live vicariously through this adventure that you and Laura and the kids are on. And I know that it has also inspired your next book, which I've been telling everybody you and Laura wrote for me. Because I've been plant-based for such a long time. But did that all come out of this experience of having this garden in the land?
It certainly did, Tommy. And it's amazing how your palate changes and making those conscious decisions to be, healthier and cook with what comes from your garden. And guess what? I'm so excited. You ready for it?
You've got it. Let's see.
Oh, we didn't know that you had it. Oh my God.
It's not out yet, but it's two chefs in the garden, Laura and Lynn. And look, Gemma, can you see that? Look.
Aww.
Oh, look at her. Oh my God.
Right. And then I'll show you quickly just for you guys to see also. And look at Addie with that watermelon. Look at
wow.
her.
Absolutely gorgeous.
But Tommy, it's a plant-based book, but there's everything from our garden in here.
Yeah.
Those tomatoes came from our garden, and the carrots and the herbs and the everything. Like, I'm so proud of this one. This one is probably my most favorite. So
the photography looks incredible. I love the images.
It's going to be 2025, believe it or not. So anyway.
Oh,
great. Yeah. So it's only a few months away, really, but soon. It'll give you an opportunity to start thinking about your own gardens. And I know that a lot of us, are not in a rural setting, but certainly container gardening is an amazing
balcony gardening,
rooftop gardening. Yeah. There's so many different options. And I know that you've had wonderful guests on your podcast to discuss that. But, there's such joy out of a single bring a little seed to life and watching it grow and then devouring it.
And tell me, I think also it's a bit like dropping a pebble in a pond, because the kids must bring their friends, and then their friends get an opportunity to see where their food comes from, the soil.
Yeah, it's for kids to see that a carrot is actually this frilly green top and that it comes out of the ground, and just it's the joy on their face to see when they do pluck that carrot out of the ground, and they just wipe it off on their shirt and eat it.
Yeah, magic.
And the flavor, like, it changes their lives for sure.
Okay, I have a really personal question. So I think where everybody is now, pretty much in the world, unless you're in the Southern Hemisphere, we're coming into tomato season, right?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were going to say something about carrots again when you said personal question.
We have a very rude story about carrots. So same here. My tomatoes are out and they're just about to start changing color. And mine will be relentless for the next.
If you leave your tomatoes in the sun, they will change color.
Yeah, no, they're outside. They're growing away. And there's maybe 6 or 7 varieties. But last year I kind of ran out of stuff to do with them for putting in the freezer, because I'm always advocating to people when they come to Tuscany, how to bring, Tuscany home, which is not really Tuscany. It's really the way our grandparents lived. You would start canning and bottling, and a long time ago you didn't have freezers, but now we can freeze this stuff. And when, say, you're in Ontario, when Ontario tomatoes are out, you can buy a bushel, a bagel, or, whatever it is, a big basket full of tomatoes. So tell me some of the things you would do if you were going to, because I really want to know you've got another great big container of tomatoes that's going to take you through the winter. You can just put into Ziploc bags. What would you do? I mean, I've done all the tomato sauces, but give me some more, because I might take some notes.
Well, Debbie, the first recipe that we will make is, get the big pot onto the stove and we make tomato sauce. I mean, that's very simple, right?
Now, do you have to peel them? Do you have to peel your tomatoes?
No. There's a food mill that you can purchase. And basically, you're just passing those tomatoes through the sieve. So all the seeds will come out and the skins. And we have, tomato sauce to me, you don't need to cook it for hours and hours. It's a very simple and quick way to preserve all those tomatoes. But the other thing that I love to do is quarter like a Roma tomato or a San Marzano tomato and quarter them up, drizzle some beautiful olive oil, Debbie, that, by the way, I'm still enjoying. It's so good, your olive oil.
I know.
Drizzle with some olive oil, some basil, and into a low temperature oven, 199, just let them dehydrate so that some of the moisture comes out, and then make sure that they have dried out so they're not mushy or soft. And then, as it would be a sun-dried tomato, just give it back some of that olive oil and then put them into a jar, and then, you keep them in the refrigerator. And that's another way of just getting intense tomato flavor.
Could you do them in the sun as well?
Well, this is the thing. If you do it in the sun, put a little bit of cheesecloth over top of them so the flies don't get at it. But it's perfect where you're at, Debbie. I'll tell you what, Tommy and I will bring our bushels of tomatoes to you in Tuscany.
Yeah.
And then we will just...
So just going back to the tomato sauce, because I've just defrosted a bag from last night, and there was a lot of skin in it. So, because I just threw it all in, cook it down, and then freeze it. But the skin does get a bit annoying. I'm just like, Hansie's moaning, and I'm like, just eat it, But so when you said put it in a sieve, so the pips and everything, or the seeds stay behind, but doesn't that just then water comes out?
No. It's like a food mill. It's like a cone, as they call it, a china cap. And then there's a wooden dowel, and you press the pulp through.
Oh.
It's larger holes.
It's almost like a flour sifter, right, Chef? But it's like a grind, not like a grinder, but it moves the material around. So
what's the name of it then? Because I'm sure I can get one here.
Either a food mill, it's a proper food mill, or a chinois. And you know what? I'll send you a link to get it. It's one of those things that you can get at any, culinary equipment store.
Yeah, because I'm going to try a bit harder this year because we really do eat it. And of course, then I muddle it up because I do gazpacho and I do tomato sauce, and then I never bother labeling. So you end up with the wrong thing.
This piece of equipment, though, talk about history. We have one of Bubka's.
Oh.
So this thing must be, I don't know, 60, 70 years old. No joke. But there's like a stand, and you put this cone sieve, chinois cap inside of it. And that's been passed down now from generation to generation. So, Debbie, I'm sure, knock on one of your neighbors' doors.
What about things like, so we've got like soups, sauces, and I like the idea of drying them because I've always thought I'll do that, but I never got round to it. And I did buy a dehydrator thing. So could you put them in that? Haven't used it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a dehydrator, and gosh, to me, it just doesn't do the volume that I like. If you're at home, certainly, you're at home, go for it. You've driven by a market stand and you've got your bushel of tomatoes, and go for it. Do that.
That's the problem with hydrators. They take up so much room and they don't really do very much, and you give up. And, I'm always buying stuff. Yeah.
I like the idea of the sunshine too.
Yeah.
But that takes days and days. I remember doing that in California. I'm pitching in on a tomato farm, and they had acres and acres of these drying racks for tomatoes.
Really?
But anyway, so when the kids get older, maybe I'll get them cracking on that.
I think there's something very intrinsically generous about cooking. And I liked when you mentioned earlier, Chef, about jarring tomatoes and jarring the sauce and storing it over the winter and having it. But I also should say for our listeners that every single time I've ever been to your home, every single time I've ever come over to your house in Laura's house, I've gone home with jarred something, whether it's pickles or tomato sauce or, something fresh from the garden that you've just picked that day. There's something wonderful about the abundance of a garden, and then canning and jarring and pickling things and preserving things so that you can use that to practice that kind of food generosity with your friends, with your family throughout the year and the seasons.
I think it's got so many edges to it because, again, when we teach people stuff here, it's not about, say, pasta making, because, Italians make pasta. You can buy pasta in the shops. Not much difference, but it's the joy of working together. And when we do cooking class, which we did, with both of you many times, it's not about the pasta, and it takes them a while. And it's only afterwards when they're all laughing and giggling and they've had a glass of Prosecco and they've made this pasta and they've suddenly got new friends. And so my thing is, make some pasta, make some pickles, do some canning, and invite your neighbors over.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Create your own new communities. And there's nothing better than the summer. And then set a date and say, okay, come round here in January when the weather's awful and we'll all, defrost this sauce and have a pasta and tomato dinner. There are so many levels to this way of living that is now becoming so popular again, and I think also because more and more people can work at home. So I know so many people who are trying to move to the countryside, whether it's here or in England or Canada or America, because you've got this great triple-edged life, that you can do everything. And so it's kind of a gift we've been given that you can, work from home, isn't it?
Well, I love that, Debbie. And, here we are, we're talking about a tomato. And look how it is spun off in so many different directions from, picking that tomato, how do you preserve it? But then the beauty of what food is, it connects people. It is so important to share it, to enjoy it, to laugh about it. I mean, it is so all-encompassing. And the peachy pasta, when I was in Tuscany with you, one visit, and the first time was your chef, Francesco, and we were making the peachy pasta, and to see all of the women from the retreat there around that your gorgeous kitchen table, but the laughter.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the laughter and the fulfillment, and of course, the gorgeous, gorgeous bowl of pasta that was shared. And food is about sharing. And I think that that's one thing that, I love to do. I love to share what I love, and that's food.
So speaking of which, I know lots of top chefs have made similar moves in terms of leaving the big city, closing the big, wildly successful restaurant. Everybody's, why did you do that? You're on top of the world. And then they move to the country. And then eventually after a little while, they do maybe like a pop-up restaurant where you could come and have something to eat. Have you and Laura ever considered doing something similar to that out in the region, like in the Peterborough region? Just a little, it's been a bumper year. Maybe we'll make some things and invite some people. And I'm just asking a question that everybody who's listening is wondering.
Tommy, I do miss cooking, right? In the environment of having a freestanding restaurant and being there. It's all encompassing.
Yeah.
And now it's a different chapter for me. And I don't know, we both, Laura and I, have entertained the thought about, pop up or have people over to the house and let us cook for you. But you know what? I'm quite fine now being behind the scenes. I'm okay with that. And 24 years with the Four Seasons, Ruby Watchko was 10 years. Start doing the math. I mean, and I know that I'm only 32, and how have I packed all of those years in? But yes. No, I think I'm good.
Lynn, isn't there a breakfast pancake or something at the Four Seasons under your name?
Yeah.
Still called the Lynn Crawford.
The lemon ricotta hotcakes.
Yeah.
Right? Gosh, how many of those have I flipped in my lifetime? I'm telling you. But, all great, great memories. And I think that for me, what I get most pleasure of, really, truly, if somebody asks me, there's, say, a charity event or something, and I can participate that way, absolutely. But having friends, family come over. Marilyn and Jim were just at, Marilyn and Jim were just
up at the cottage. I saw that. Yeah,
the cottage, and we celebrated Marilyn's birthday, and we were hanging out, and it was And we cooked. We did this magnificent mixed grill, and we had the fresh peas from the garden, and we had, I mean, it was, that's what I like. That's what I like. So come on over and I'll fire up the pancakes.
We're just going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
But, it's actually a really good point about next chapters, which is, again, a huge topic here that we have in Tuscany. And people afraid that they'll be looking back all the time. They'll be, and I think what I've learned from meeting so many people who've started next chapters, including myself, is that, it is a bridge you have to go over. But I never met anybody, not one person, who said, I regret my job at the bank, or I regret, like I've often talked about my Irish friend Helen, who was a surgeon who became a singer and moved to Princeton where she could, anyway, she's not Taylor Swift, but she loves it. But she's never looked back. She's never regretted it and said, yeah, they were the first years and I absolutely love it. And I think that's what I think you have to get into people's heads, that, it's one chapter and the next chapter. And if you're so happy, which obviously you are, life on the land with the family, you're not really entertaining that idea of dipping back in, are you? Which is what it would be. Yeah,
not so much anymore, Debbie. And I think a lot has to do of, in this specific chapter that I am in, I'm a mom now. And having two small kiddos, Addie's going to be eight.
Good heavens.
In the fall, and Gemma will be 6.
Wow.
I mean, when did that happen? But I didn't have that chapter, 20 years ago. So yes, it's later in my life, but who's to say that, at what point do you do those things? Being a chef, being an executive chef, there's no way I could have been the mom I am today because I would have had the time.
And it's interesting because you've done the reverse, haven't you, of what a lot of people like me waited till the kids had left home, chucked them out, and then started my next chapter in another country and didn't give them the address. Mummy's going now. But you're actually quite rare doing it the other way around. You've had that, and like you say, there is nothing more ruthless than life in the kitchen, and to have a family. Because I think, don't they say more chefs get divorced than anybody else? Because the pressure of working, in hospitality and at night on a family and on a marriage, I think is really, really quite difficult. But you went the other way. So you had this high pressured, very successful career, like you said, 4 seasons around the world, and then your own restaurants and, airport restaurants. And then life took you down this lovely road. And I'm sure it's not easy all the time. You're not 24 to be raising children but you could not do both. I mean, I couldn't,
Yeah, there's no way. Having children and being an executive chef that is, an operation that is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It's just like, oh, is it bedtime? Oh gosh, did I miss that again? You would certainly miss those, the important times of raising a child. But now, sure, I mean, some days it can be really chaotic, but it's a great balance. Mm-hmm. And, there's 2 moms in our family, which is totally amazing, and the kids are surrounded by an incredible community, a network of great friends and family.
So close to family where you are. Yeah.
So close to family. So, I mean, to watch them grow, Debbie and Tommy, has just been, for me, the most inspiring, most beautiful thing. And I'm so glad that I've had this opportunity to capture those memories. And I want to give those kiddos as much as I possibly can to see this big, beautiful world that we're all living in, and surround them with the best people. And they've had both the opportunity of meeting, the both of you. And travel is so important, and mm-hmm. Music.
And you've really done all of that. I can't believe that Addie is going to be 8.
Yeah.
It's insane to me. I remember you and I were in Pittsburgh with Marilyn just before Thanksgiving. I'm just going to tell a quick story here. And we were shooting with Mare, And Thanksgiving was literally like we got home just in time for Thanksgiving. You said, come to the house. Laura's making dinner. Laura was so pregnant at this time that when she bent over to take that 25-pound turkey out of the oven, I thought Addie was going to shoot out the other end of her. I mean, she was that pregnant. But it feels like yesterday to me. And I think, for anybody who's listening, there's a hugely, wildly popular show called The Bear. And if you haven't seen it, it's a must see. But I think it's such a realistic portrayal, having worked in restaurants, mostly front of house, a little bit back of house early on in my own, work life as a young adult. I think it's such an accurate portrayal of how committed you have to be and how difficult the job is. And so for anybody who's listening to these stories about kind of needing a break from that and moving out of that world and moving into a quieter space, just watch The Bear. If you wonder what Lynn's life was like with Laura in their restaurant, it's that. That's what it is.
And I think so many people, when we were young, had, weekend jobs. I did in a restaurant, and I think I learned at 15 never ever to go into that business because my job was to stack the dishwasher. That was it, in an Italian restaurant in the north of England, where they were mad. I still, when I think about it, and they had those, I don't know if they still do in restaurants, those swing doors, which always seem very dangerous to me, from the kitchen to the
saloon
restaurant.
doors. They're like saloon doors.
And, waiters used to be flung across, and somebody was always throwing, a cup at some intern's head or a knife or something. There was chaos going on, and there was rooms upstairs. It was a small hotel as well as a restaurant. And they had a regular guest, let's call him George. And he was a single man living alone in and out of this hotel. And he always complained, always was complaining. And the chef would just there was always something wrong with his dinner or his breakfast. Anyway, one day this waiter comes in and you can see he's like, oh God, And, in England we eat kippers. I don't know if they still do, but kippers for breakfast.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, which was protein, and it made you thirsty for the rest of the day. Very salty, very Scottish, Anyway, there was a cat in this kitchen, and not a very attractive cat, really scuzzy and dirty. Anyway, the cat was on the counter, and so the chef took the kipper, this fish, off the man's plate, and there was like a little grilled tomato next to it and a little bit of toast and everything. And he picked up the cat's I shouldn't tell you this. He picked up the cat's tail. This is a long time ago. And he wiped the fish across its bottom, put it back on the plate, sent the waiter back upstairs. And apparently he said the kipper was delicious. So I think I was traumatized. Never, ever to get a job in a kitchen, unless I was the big boss like Lynn. But, it's a great thing for kids to learn around that kind of stuff.
I guess the adverts for that restaurant moving forward must have been, come and try our food. It's the cat's ass.
Oh, God. I used to plead with my mum. Can I get a job in the shoe shop instead?
I've always said that working in a restaurant, front or back of house, should be like mandatory, like military service in France.
I agree.
Because you learn so much that you apply to so many different things later in life. And I actually really miss it. Even years later, after I'd left that industry, I used to go, when I was single, I used to go to Ruby Watch Co. And even if I wasn't having like the whole, big sort of family style meal, if I was by myself, I would sit at the bar and Laura would make me something to eat or just cobble together a plate for me. And once in a while, when there was a big event happening upstairs, I would help the staff run the food up. And there was one or two times where I would be doing that and somebody would say, wait a minute, aren't you? And I would say, oh no, I get that all the time. But it was fun to stack, 4 plates on one arm and go up the stairs with the rest of the team and be serving the plates of food to the people. And there's just something so intrinsically generous about it. And even just to jump back in for, 15 minutes here or there and be back in service. We are all in our lives in service of others. And the restaurant environment is really intrinsically that.
And you can take it one way or the other. You can be the miserable waiter or you can be the happy waiter.
Oh, I was always the happy waiter.
I'd be the miserable one. So Lynn, how did you start? How did you get interested in Life in the kitchen.
Geez, go back and let's everybody get into the time machine, do up your seatbelts. We're going way back.
Way back.
Way back. Well, it was, I think like anybody that's, young, you need a job, right? To make some extra pocket money and whatever. So I had a job at a Greasy Spoon restaurant where I helped out in the kitchen. And this is while I was actually going to university. And I'd never worked in a kitchen before. And I go in there, I'm all excited. And those checkered pants?
Oh, yeah.
Little polyester checker pants that are so stiff. And you just walk like this in my little chef's jacket. And it was like, okay, chef, I'm ready. And he goes, all right, well, you just head on over there. We got an order up. And I'm like, oh, order up. Yes, chef. Like no clue, like none. He goes, I need a hamburger. Just take that. Okay, a hamburger. No problem. Chef, well, I know it has a bun. Okay, the burger. Okay. He goes, take that burger and throw it in the fryer. I said, what?
What?
Yes, exact. Throw the burger in the fryer? I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Yes, that's what I said. Hurry up. And then I just sort of questioned it. It was like, I had no culinary training.
But you knew that was wrong.
But I was like, you mean you're going to throw this beautiful hamburger? Well, it wasn't beautiful, really. But you're going to throw the hamburger into the fryer and put it between the bun and then serve it. And I think that I said, well, you know what? This is really not for me. Goodbye. Yeah. I love it. The things you see. I was in Montreal and I worked at a creperie Breton, and I learned how to make beautiful crepes with lovely fillings, with apples. And it was beautiful. Like I always had that job working in a kitchen that would help support the inevitable, task of going to school and making some money, right? But then it was while I was at university taking fine art that my friend said, at the time, because I was throwing little dinner parties, it was like, look, Gourmet magazine back in the day, was such a wonderful publication with, travel and recipes, and, let's make this paella. And I'm going to pick up some beautiful wine and I would go to the farmer's market and gather the ingredients and I would cook for my roommates. And they were like, wow, you're really quite good at this. And they were the ones that shone the spotlight that there was a wonderful world of food, culinary, arts, and whatever. And then that's what I did. I left university, fine art, which I still love, but went in another direction of cooking. So, I staged in a million places after graduation of culinary school. And it's about apprenticing and working really hard. The amount of hours that you put in and all the holidays that you miss and just breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And
it's full time, full on.
And also the hierarchy. You remember the book, I think we did it at school, In and Out in London and Paris. It was the Paris bit, which I loved. He went and worked as a waiter. Not even a waiter. He worked in the kitchen, but there were so many levels in this Parisian kitchen. Like the potato peeler had somebody beneath them,
It's like the military.
It was like the military, and they were half-starved. When I moved to London, I got a job in a Kuwaiti restaurant, and they gave us a uniform. And it was a very, very tight, low at the front, low at the back, black dress, right? But we had to share it with the lunchtime staff. You would take it off when you left at 2 a.m, and somebody else would put it on, And one day I forgot to take it off, went home on the bus, and I thought, I'm going to wash it. And I remember to this day putting it in the bathtub in my tiny little flat, and the water, just mud coming out of it. Oh, I don't think it had ever been washed. And the smell, oh my God, it was, and we shared. And a lot of these, in a lot of these waiters and kitchen staff, not waiters, but kitchen staff, still, I know in some of the big hotels in London are sharing beds. The lunch staff, go off to work, and then the night staff come in and they get the bed. You know, it's still a ruthless, ruthless world, I think. And if you can make that and still love food, which you obviously do.
You know, I mean, there's different tiers. It's all about surrounding yourself with the best of the best. And I think that should be the question in everything, or what you all want to do, right? Find the best of the best. And that's what I did. I mean, I knew that I had to work hard. I knew that women in the kitchen were not, we were kind of frowned upon. It was a male-dominated profession when I joined, for the most part. And, you know, you have to put your time in. But I never once thought about the people around me as the negative force. I always look for the positive and try to be the best in your day. Like, you know, self-reflection is always such a wonderful thing, and hold people accountable. I mean, that kind of behavior, if you experience that awful, brash, negative, you know, behavior, you have to be responsible and call upon it, right?
And did you think there's more women in the kitchen now at that level?
Yeah, I mean, statistically, you know, the enrollment and all the culinary programs, you know, it's 50-50, I'd say. And that's great. You know, that's wonderful.
Benefits everyone. More talent, more, you know, more perspective.
Yeah, totally. And more opportunities for sure. And then certainly it's not the profession. There's more standards in place now where you're not going to be working, you know, 14, 15 hours a day. There's labor laws now that people listen to, but
no cats in the kitchen anymore, Debbie. No, that's banned. They're banned now.
No cats in the kitchen, right? Keep your guests at the bar. Don't allow them to serve the food. Yeah. But
there are rules.
There are rules.
Yeah.
You know, surrounding yourself with the best of the best, and that's what I did. And I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed. I had a great career. Working with the Four Seasons was always about that. It was people first. And quality and the experiences and great friendships and long-lasting friendships. Like, as you know, I've kept in touch with so many different chefs all around the world now, and it's really amazing to see. But now, you know, that chapter of gosh, I'm not going to say I'm retired, but it's crazy. You know, you see these young chefs now diving in, and it's like, wow, I'm impressed.
The energy, the energy it takes. And
look at you go. Yes, amazing. But
yeah, it's cool.
It is. I love hanging out with the younger chefs and hearing their stories, you know, and to see their paths develop and what they do. Yeah, it's been great.
Well, you really haven't retired. I mean, when you think about, like, we've talked a lot about this sort of next chapter of your life and where you are, but you and Laura have been creating beautiful publications, cookbooks. And to bring it back to that, this is sort of the next thing that's coming from the two of you, this plant-based or plant-centric, sort of garden-inspired new book. And in anticipation of that, I know we have to wait a few months, which I'm happy to do because I know it'll be so worth it. I can't wait for this book, especially this book. There have always been great plant-based recipes in all of your books, but this one is, I really do feel it's for me. But do you have a favorite sort of thing that we can look forward to, like a certain recipe that we can, you know, maybe bookmark once we get the book? Is there something that you're especially excited about?
Oh my gosh. Tommy, you know, I always say when people say, what's your favorite recipe in the book? And then you're going, oh, all
of them.
This one, you know, there's just so many different things, you know, tempura eggplant tacos with baja sauce, sweet corn fritters with rosemary, hot honey, and lime sour cream. There's pierogies, potato salad, mulligatawny soup.
I haven't heard that word for a long time.
I know.
Late teens, when my grandma used to take us to English-style restaurants, there was oxtail soup and mulligatawny. And I guess that came from India, right?
Yeah, a little bit of curry essence in that.
Curry essence, which was, isn't that unbelievable?
Ratatouille. Now go to the garden and pick your eggplant and zucchini.
Ratatouille is so delicious.
Freeze that up also. But, you know, it's like you don't miss the meat at all. And certainly, there's pancakes in here too, guys. Oh, look at that. Well, go figure. We're calling it hot cake.
Oh, there they are. There it is, Debbie. You can make it now.
Oh.
I will say that Chef Laura's potato salad is the thing that I always bring to potlucks, and it is always such a massive hit. It's that little bit of pickled jalapeno brine in the dressing.
Yeah.
It requires very little in terms of mayonnaise, so it's actually a very healthy dish. And I just substitute vegan mayonnaise because Hellmann's makes a perfect vegan mayonnaise.
And the caramelized onions.
Caramelized onions and the dill. I mean, it's just the best potato salad I've ever had. Ever.
Will you do a tour, do you think?
Yeah, the Penguin Random House absolutely is our amazing publisher. And yes, they're discussing that. And lots of exciting things in the fall for sure, and New Year coming up. And
amazing.
Yeah, so we're just going to keep on, writing. We've got another book concept that we're working on at the moment, which I can't really speak about, but it's for little ones, little chefs.
Oh, that's fun. I know Laura, that's been percolating with Laura for years and years and years.
Right?
I remember we had a name. We even came up with a name for it about 10 or 15 years ago.
Remember that? Remember the French fry salad? That was remember.
And there was something about lemons. Anyway, yes, I think that's a logical next step, of course, because you've been moms for, 8 years now, and you've been doing your gardening at home and moved to the farm. So, of course, something for little ones makes sense.
Yeah. So, we got that on the go. And then, Debbie, we're going to keep on traveling. And I have to tell you that little Gemma asks me once, twice a week, when are we going to Italy? Back to Italy. I want to see Debbie and Billy, and they talk about Billy and Hans and your beautiful, beautiful, beautiful villa and what magical times we had. They love Italy, so we'll be back.
Well, you should come anytime. Billy's waiting. Tommy's always here. You've been a few times. You've been a few times. What's lovely for me is when we're kind of finishing off the season, which we are this week, then your friends and your family come. And, I've got 20 arriving of family in a week. And I'll go away, I think. No, but it's what you work for, isn't it? It's what you put it all together for. And, it's nice having, paying guests, but it's even better when the mob arrive. And my eldest has been a foodaholic. He's an amazing chef, it's not his job, but he can cook for 50, just like that. I mean, if I make an omelet and I put it outside, just a simple omelet, he'll walk outside, pick up the plate, come back in and change it. And I'm like, it's so irritating. It's like, Mum, that's not how you peel a potato. I taught you to walk, okay? But, but he is so good, and it's such a pleasure to watch him in the kitchen whipping it up. And when it's not a chore, when you're loving it, and you're doing it for family, it's the best thing. Like you say, it's the best thing in the world. But yeah, you bring those little girls back anytime you like. I need a Billy babysitter.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, on that note, we'll say goodbye for now. Chef, I just want to thank you for everything you do. We are always so inspired by the art, the culinary art that you share with the world and continue to share. And I cannot wait for the new book. And we'll have you on the podcast again as soon as it comes out.
Thank you. Well, I love and adore you both. Friends, I love you. And have a wonderful rest of the summer. Enjoy, and we will regroup in person real soon.
Absolutely. Love you too.
Bye, my love. Enjoy the garden.
All right. Talk to you soon.
If you're enjoying this podcast, please rate us, send in a review, and make sure you're subscribed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This podcast is distributed by the Women in Media Podcast Network. Find out more at womeninmedia.network.